Folks, get ready. Boom, out go the lights. Yep, the entire neighborhood just blinked off the face of the earth. 3 days without power. Are we panicking? Of course we are. Nothing says good times like stumbling around in the dark, kicking the coffee table and cursing up a storm. But this isn't just a rant about how miserable a 72-hour blackout can be. It's the story of what actually saved our behinds and kept our family safe. And listen, if you're in the US, this could be your story too. Blackouts are more common than you think. From California wildfires to Texas ice storms to hurricanes hammering Florida, the power grid can go poof no matter where you live. In fact, 80% of major outages since 2000 were caused by weather events, and they're happening about twice as often in the last decade as they did in the early 2000s. So when I say we lost power for 3 days, I know a ton of you out there have been through something similar or will be. Let me tell you how we got through it alive, intact, and even almost comfortable, with a dash of urgency, a pinch of sarcasm, and loads of real info you'll want to remember. First, picture this. Night 1 of the outage, pitch black inside and out, the whole block is down. I've got 2 little kids wide-eyed and scared and my elderly mother bundled under blankets on the couch. It's winter, naturally, because why would the power grid fail on a mild spring day? And the house is already getting cold. We're talking see your breath cold. The temptation. Light every candle in the house like we're in some Victorian-era seance. Maybe even spark up the grill in the living room just this once for heat. Hey, people do some unbelievably dumb stuff the minute the lights go out. But not us, not that night. Why? Because we knew better. We weren't about to turn our living room into a medieval dungeon lit by open flames. Those romantic candles can turn on you real fast, knock one over while fumbling around, and suddenly you're reenacting a scene from Backdraft. I'd read the horror stories. One family in Georgia lost their entire home to a fire after Hurricane Helene knocked out power. They lit a candle during the outage and whoosh, the whole house went up in flames. And that's not an isolated incident. During the Northeast blackout of 2003, New York City firefighters had their hands full with 60 major fires in one night, mostly caused by people using candles for light. That's about 10 times the usual number of fires in a night, all because folks were fumbling with flames. So yeah, we noped out of the candle idea real quick. What saved us? Number 1, safe light and power. Instead of candles, we grabbed our flashlights and LED lanterns, the ones we'd stashed for exactly this kind of occasion. Battery-powered lights are boring and unromantic, I know, but you know what else they are? Safe. As the Missouri Department of Public Safety bluntly puts it, never use candles as a light source during outages. They say that because too many people have literally burned down their houses trying to see in the dark. We were not about to join that statistic. So our living room had this eerie LED glow, like a kid's makeshift fort, but at least it wasn't on fire. The kids calmed down once we busted out some neon glow sticks, a little trick for panicked toddlers, turns an outage into a glow party. And for warmth, layers, layers, layers. We threw on thermals and winter coats indoors, and all camped out in the family room which has a fireplace. I sealed off the rest of the house, why heat rooms we weren't using, and got a nice fire going in the fireplace. In the fireplace, I repeat, not in the middle of the carpet. Common sense, right? You'd be surprised. Some folks in the big Texas freeze of 2021 literally started burning their furniture to stay warm. Not us. We had seasoned firewood ready, and a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector just in case. The result? We were cold. Sure, but not in danger of freezing or poisoning ourselves. A little shivering is better than the alternative of, say, running a charcoal grill indoors, which, by the way, people try with deadly results. Remember those 19 Texans who survived the 2021 winter storm only to die from carbon monoxide because they ran generators or grills in enclosed spaces? Yeah, we remembered that too, and kept anything that burns outside or unlit. If you're ever in this situation, please do the same. You might survive the storm only to get taken out by fumes, a tragically common irony. Now, let me brag for a second about the MVP of this whole ordeal, our backup power unit. We had invested in a serious battery power station a while back. I admit, I'm a bit of a preparedness nerd. In our case, it's the Blackout Apex 300, basically a high-tech silent generator the size of a cooler. This thing is a beast. It holds about 2.7 kilowatt-hours of juice and can output up to 3,840 watts of AC power, meaning it can handle heavy-duty appliances. And unlike a gas generator, it kicks in with 0 milliseconds delay when the grid fails, acting as an uninterruptible power supply. So the moment the power died, our Apex unit automatically switched over, and bam, our living room lamp and Wi-Fi stayed on without even a blink. My mom's CPAP breathing machine, she needs it at night, kept running like nothing happened, which was literally a lifesaver for her. No noisy engine revving up, no fumes, no drama. Just a quiet battery box humming away in the corner, keeping our essentials alive. With roughly 2.76 kilowatts stored, we managed to keep the fridge, some lights, and mom's medical devices powered for many hours at a stretch. We rationed power carefully. The fridge and freezer, for instance. We plugged into the battery for about an hour at a time just to chill things back down, then unplugged to let it rest. And the Apex 300 sips power at idle, only about a 20-watt draw, so it wasn't wasting precious energy when our usage was low. We also recharged it with a bit of solar we have, and a quick top-up from the car inverter when the sun didn't cooperate. Look, I know not everyone has a fancy battery backup at home, but consider it if you can swing it. Even a smaller generator or power bank can make a huge difference. Just remember, gas generators go outside at least 20 feet away from windows and never in the garage. After Hurricane Laura in 2020, the majority of deaths weren't from the storm itself, they were from people running generators improperly and getting poisoned by carbon monoxide. I was determined not to become one of those grim headlines, so anytime we ran our small gas generator, we had a portable one as Plan B. We set it on the back patio with the exhaust pointed away from the house, only refueled it when it was off and cool, and had a CO detector inside just in case. Belt and suspenders approach. It's not glamorous trudging out into the cold to fiddle with a generator, but as I like to say, it beats not trudging out ever again, because you filled your home with deadly gas. What saved us, number 2, smart use of food and water. Day 1, we're feeling optimistic. Surely the power will be back by morning. By day 2, that optimism died faster than the ice cream in our freezer. Here's the situation. We've got a refrigerator full of perishables slowly warming up, a freezer losing its chill, and 2 hungry kids eyeing the snacks. The rookie move here is to start raiding the fridge out of boredom or anxiety, opening and closing it every 10 minutes to see what's still cold. Not us. I practically padlocked the fridge door and taped a big "Keep Clothes" sign on it. Every time you open that door, you're letting cold air out and warm air in, basically sabotaging your own food supply. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says a closed fridge will keep food safe for up to approximately 4 hours during a power outage, and a full freezer can hold temp around 48 hours if you don't open it. But those numbers go out the window if you're standing there with the door open, gazing in like it's TV. So we made a plan. Eat from the pantry first, not the fridge. We had plenty of canned goods, bread, peanut butter, the stuff that doesn't care about electricity. We also had a camping cooler and some ice packs ready. I quickly moved a few essentials we'd likely use, a jug of milk, some yogurt for the kids, lunch meat, into the cooler, so we'd only have to open that instead of the main fridge each time. It's like creating a mini fridge that you sacrifice to frequent opening, preserving the big fridge's cold. And it worked. By day 3, a lot of the fridge items were at the brink, but still edible because we'd kept that door shut. We also prioritized cooking up anything high risk. We had some chicken and steaks in the freezer that were starting to thaw, so guess what? Barbecue time. I fired up the charcoal grill outside safely on the driveway, far from the house, and we had an impromptu block party barbecue. Grilling our thawing food not only fed us and our neighbors, it also prevented waste and, frankly, boosted morale. Nothing says we're going to be all right like the smell of burgers during a disaster. By the way, I checked the meat with a thermometer to ensure it was fully cooked. The last thing we needed was food poisoning on top of a blackout. Speaking of which, we had a firm rule: when in doubt, throw it out. The FDA and CDC warn that perishable foods, meat, dairy, eggs, leftovers, start becoming unsafe after about 4 hours above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Bacteria that can make you seriously sick don't always announce themselves with a foul smell or weird look, so you can't rely on the old sniff test. If the outage stretches on and you're not absolutely sure about something, trash it. Yes, it's painful to toss food, especially when grocery stores might still be closed or ransacked, but trust me, the only thing worse than sitting in a cold, dark house is doing it while hugging a toilet because you ate bad mayo. We heeded the mantra to discard questionable food, and thankfully none of us got sick. Now water, oh boy. Water is one of those things you take for granted until your taps stop running. Our city water pressure held up for a while, but by the end of day 2 it was sputtering. A pump station had lost power. Backup generators ran out of fuel or failed, I later learned, so suddenly our plumbing was on the fritz. If you're on a well, you'd lose water the minute the power went out, but even city systems aren't infallible in extended outages. Fortunately, we were ready here too. We had a stash of bottled water and filled jugs, probably 15 gallons in total, stored in our basement. FEMA recommends at least 1 gallon per person per day for emergencies, and I'd say that's a bare minimum. We had 4 people, so for 3 days that's 12 gallons needed just for drinking and basic sanitation. We had a bit more than that, which was good because let me tell you, when the toilets won't flush, you'll burn through water fast. We used some of our stash to manually flush toilets, not fun but better than the alternative. My neighbors who hadn't stored water were melting snow in buckets to flush or begging off others, not a situation you want to be in if you can avoid it. By having water and basic foods, oatmeal, canned soup, granola bars, powdered milk for the kids, etc., we avoided the mad dash to the grocery store. You've seen the footage of panic crowds clearing shelves before a storm. We skipped that entirely because our pantry was already stocked, and wouldn't you know, that turned out to be a lifesaver in its own way. On day 3 we heard our grocery store had lines wrapped around the building and people were fighting over the last cases of water. No thanks, we stayed home, well-fed and hydrated, playing board games by lantern light while others drove around town desperately searching for supplies. Being prepared saved us gas, stress, and potentially dangerous exposure. Roads during disasters can be chaotic. What saved us, number 3, protecting our home and gadgets and sanity when power came back. By the 3rd day we were checking our utilities outage map obsessively and listening to a battery radio for updates. The moment we'd been waiting for finally came at 3:27 a.m. Why do these things always happen in the middle of the night? Without warning, whoom, the lights flashed on, the fridge kicked into life, the furnace started humming, and then bam, everything went dark again. My heart jumped into my throat. Did we just lose power again? Turns out the grid was a bit unstable during the restoration, and we got a couple of surges. But here's the key part. We had anticipated this. Before we went to bed, I went around and turned off or unplugged most appliances. The only light we left on was a single lamp as a welcome back indicator. So when that power came back in a surge, it only had that lamp and a few charging devices to feed. No sudden overload of every appliance in the house. Our electronics were safe, nothing got fried. I shudder to imagine if we hadn't done that. The TV, computers, and gaming console all might have gotten zapped by that power surge. It happens more often than you'd think. I remember reading about a house in Danville, Virginia that caught fire because the owners left their electric stove on during an outage. When the power finally came back, it reheated a pan or maybe some flammable item on the stove and started a blaze while they weren't home. Yikes. We made sure no burners were unknowingly left on, and we even cleared the stovetop of any clutter just in case. If you're ever in a blackout, do yourself a favor, turn off your stove, oven, space heaters, irons, anything that could be dangerous if it suddenly turned back on unattended. And for everything else, unplug if possible or switch off the power strips. The last thing you want after surviving days with no power is to have the comeback of electricity burn your house down or destroy your hard-earned electronics. We also used surge protectors on the sensitive stuff, router, TV, etc. But still, nothing beats simply unplugging. So when the juice finally stabilized that morning, we plugged things back in one by one, on our terms. No drama, no "oh no, the microwave is dead" moments. Instead of our house lighting up like a haunted circus all at once, we had a calm, controlled revival of power. That saved us a ton of potential grief and money. A couple of other things that might not be obvious. We never once called 911 to ask when's the power coming back. You'd be amazed, people do this. In a panic, they tie up emergency lines to complain about the outage, which doesn't fix anything and only diverts resources from real emergencies. We knew to call our utilities outage hotline or check their app, and leave 911 for life and death situations, which, thankfully, we avoided. Also, we kept communications sane, using texts and battery radio for updates, but not burning our phone batteries on endless TikTok scrolling, tempting as it was. Each of us had a portable USB battery pack, so we recharged phones sparingly and kept one old phone on a low-power mode just to receive any emergency alerts. Because if there was a tornado warning or something on top of everything, we wanted to know. By conserving our device batteries and having those backup chargers, we never lost the ability to call for help or check in on relatives. It's a small thing, but in this hyper-connected age, being cut off can be both dangerous and mentally stressful. Our little preparedness steps kept us connected and a bit more at ease. Now I won't lie, those 3 days were tough. By the end, the house was cold. It was 45 degrees Fahrenheit inside before the furnace roared back to life. We were all a bit sleep-deprived, and the kids were thoroughly over the camping indoors adventure. But looking back, it was also kind of amazing. We saw firsthand how a little common sense and preparation made what could have been a complete disaster into a merely uncomfortable inconvenience. We didn't have to trek to a warming center or FEMA site, we didn't need rescue, we didn't lose our home to fire or our lives to carbon monoxide. In fact, we became the unofficial heroes of our little cul-de-sac because we had power. Thanks to that battery unit, we were the only house for blocks with a working fridge and a glowing front window at night. Neighbors ended up coming over to charge their phones and flashlights with us. We shared that barbecue feast with anyone who wanted a hot meal. My wife made hot cocoa on our camp stove for the kids next door. It turned into a community bonding event in a way. One elderly neighbor down the street relied on an oxygen concentrator. When her backup batteries ran low, we invited her over to plug into our power station for a while. That probably saved her life, or at least kept her out of the hospital. By being prepared, we were able to help others, and that felt incredibly good in the midst of a crummy situation. So what actually saved us during those 3 powerless days? To sum it up, we respected the dangers and planned ahead. We had safe lighting and a safe way to get power, no open flames or indoor generator nonsense, because we like our house unburnt and our lungs CO-free. We had supplies, food, water, and a plan to use them wisely, so no one went hungry or got sick drinking sketchy water. We thought ahead about our appliances and devices, avoiding surge damage and fires when the electricity returned. And underlying all of that, we kept our cool, figuratively at least. Instead of panicking, we focused on solutions. Instead of feeling helpless, we got to work with what we had, and you can bet we're even more prepared for next time now. I already ordered a bigger stash of batteries and extra fuel for the generator, and I might or might not have convinced 2 neighbors to get the same battery backup I have after they saw ours in action. Hey, I don't get commission or anything, but I do believe in sharing what works. If something keeps my family safe, darn right I'm going to tell my friends about it. The U.S. power grid might be held together with duct tape and hope in some places, so outages aren't going away. Whether it's a hurricane in the Gulf, a wildfire out west, a polar vortex up north, or just an overloaded system on a hot August day, be ready. Don't be the person on the news who survives the storm only to light themselves on fire or blow up their kitchen afterward. Be the calm, prepared one who everyone else looks to and says, "Man, they really had it together." Trust me, it's a good feeling. Have you been through a multi-day power outage? Got any crazy blackout stories or tips of your own that saved your bacon? Share them in the comments. I'd love to hear how others coped, and I promise not to judge much. If you found this little adventure helpful or at least entertaining, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe for more real talk survival tips and home hacks. I've got plenty more to share, hopefully so you won't have to learn it the hard way like we did. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you'll know when I post the next guide on how not to accidentally blow yourself up in pursuit of DIY preparedness. Thanks for watching, or reading in this case. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.